Welcome to the Messy City Podcast, where we talk with the people who design, plan, build, develop, or even just think about how to create beautiful, successful, and humane cities and towns. Let's learn from each other and create places we truly care about. Welcome back to the Messy City Podcast, live from Kansas City. I've got my friend Jaime. Jaime, before I sound like a real fool, make sure I pronounce your last name correctly. Izurieta?
You got it.
All right. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Not too bad for a white boy from the Midwest. So
No, that was perfect.
yeah. Jaime and I have spent the last couple of days working together here on a project in Kansas City that's been really interesting and a lot of fun. We're kind of kicking off an effort for one of our business districts in the Midtown area, and Jaime is the kind of person that you want helping you with work like that. And so I put out the bat signal for him to come to town, and we've had a nice little mini charrette the last couple of days, and his first introduction to Kansas City. So anyway, now you're in the studio. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's been amazing. I had fabulous barbecue yesterday.
Yeah.
So
that's
that
required.
was a high point of the trip, but the work that we did, I think it was great. I got to meet some amazing store owners, got to walk some amazing streets, and it was great. Thank you for hosting me.
Well, I think it was really helpful for me and our organization and all of our people. And I think there's a lot of good that's going to come of it. And maybe as the year goes on, we'll be able to talk more about some of the specifics of this result. But it's really an extension of place management work that we do here in Midtown with Midtown KC Now, and indicative of the kind of work that you do all over the country now with different clients.
Pretty much, yes.
So before we do that,
Uh-huh.
so I want to talk about that because I think your work with Storefront Mastery and everything is super interesting. But I also want to help because we're almost the same age, and both of us have had long and winding careers. And I think it'd be interesting to trace the arc of your career as well.
Uh-huh.
So start with me let's talk about where you grew up and then how you ended up to where you are today in New Jersey, of all places.
Yes. So I grew up in Quito, Ecuador. This is kind of far away. Yes.
To say the least. Yeah.
To say the least. I went to college back in Quito, and I got a graphic design degree. And then when that was over, I was like, I need to move out. So I went to study historic preservation in Savannah, Georgia, which you know well.
So I got to stop you there. How on earth did you find Savannah with all that?
SCAD was super popular. They did a fantastic job of recruiting students.
Okay.
So I knew SCAD from when I was in high school.
SCAD must have been pretty small then.
It was very small. It was nothing like the SCAD that is now.
Right.
It has exploded. It's really amazing to see everything that they've done. So I was looking at my BA diploma of graphic design. I'm like, I got to do something else. I got to move out. So I applied to SCAD, made it to study historic preservation, and I finished a degree in historic preservation. And as I was finishing, I took the last class was I think it was like a preservation design class or something with an architect, Peter Calandruccio. I will always remember him because his comment stamped red ink across everything that I had done was do some architecture. So the next thing I knew, I was applying for an extra 3 years of SCAD to do architecture, which I did. And I graduated. I'm not going to say what year. I graduated, and then I went back to Ecuador, worked as an architect for a while, then little while. Then I went to the Netherlands to travel mostly, to
Hmm.
study city management, urban management, and development. And then I came back. I started working a little bit as an architect still, but I was doing a lot of local economic development work, which I fell in love with, and I just started shifting the whole practice towards that. Then almost 9 years ago, we decided with my wife to move to the US, and we did. And so I had a little hiatus of my career until we got settled.
Hmm.
We got settled in New Jersey. We lived in Miami for 3 years,
Hmm.
and then got settled in New Jersey because she got into dental school there.
Okay.
So we moved, and I started Storefront Mastery a little bit before the pandemic. It was just an idea
Hmm.
that I was talking to people, and they were asking me questions. I had a wonderful job at the moment, but I people just started asking me questions. I love to answer those questions, and then pandemic came,
Hmm.
and I was in conversations with the local business improvement district in Montclair, New Jersey, where I live, and they had everything was closed during lockdowns. In New Jersey, it was pretty brutal at the beginning,
Hmm.
but then we opened up very fast. So people were looking at what are we gonna do when we open back up? Are we gonna die? Are we gonna the businesses? Are we gonna die? Are we gonna what's gonna happen with
Hmm.
our business? And so Storefront Mastery became this sort of light at the end of the tunnel. I produced a booklet that they could use to assess their relationship with the origin of their business.
Hmm.
And that first cohort of Storefront Mastery businesses was they were super happy to work with the ideas. They were super happy to reassess their to rediscover the passion that they had when they opened their business, and maybe pivot, maybe shut down the operation entirely and do something completely different, which a couple did. It was fun to work with them. And then after that I was like, maybe this is what I want to do.
Hmm.
So it started being a design practice. I am not a licensed architect. I did go to architecture school, but I'm not a licensed architect, so I was not doing architectural projects. So it was okay. So I will coach you. I will coach you. Have a ton of experience working in with many hats: local economic development, entrepreneurship, innovation. Work for local government. I work for private sector. So I was like, I will coach you, and we will both find what is the best fit for your storefront. So the idea is I will not design your storefront.
Hmm.
You will. Because if I do it, it's going to be an alien thing that eventually comes and sits on top of your business. And when that happens, you will not use it as an everyday tool. You will not make it part of your operation. You will not make it part of your marketing, and it'll just sit there and maybe even be detrimental to your business.
Hmm.
So we will work together to find what is the best fit, and then we will design it. But basically, you will design it. I will
Hmm.
just manifest it in a sheet of paper and give it to you.
Hmm.
And that's what Software Mastery became. Eventually, I started going deeper into what is the origin of vacancies, what is the origin of businesses that are not doing that great, what is the reason why some businesses do very well. And so trying to find how everything plays together, and that's where I am right now. It's looking at the reasons why some businesses are successful, trying to work with those more successful businesses within downtowns, so that number one, they can grow, they can become the anchors and the reasons why people come to
Hmm.
downtown, and they can be the mentors of the ones that are not doing so great.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's where Storefront Mastery is right now.
So it's funny because I think a lot of people who are not in the design world might just think they might be surprised to learn that there's some sort of an art behind storefront design.
Yep.
That you just open your business and your business is going to be successful based on the business you run, not necessarily on, the front of your building.
Mhm.
But I guess from your experience, you're seeing that's couldn't be farther from the truth.
I think that there's two dimensions, actually three dimensions to your business. The first dimension is the nature of your business. Are
Hmm.
you a restaurant? Are you a retail store? If you're a retail store, do you sell, I don't know, vintage clothing, for example? It's going to be very different than if you are a coffee shop. So that's the nature of the business kind of
Hmm.
dimension. And then there's the back office, the back of the office dimension, which
Hmm.
is I need my business to survive financially, and I need my business to be compliant with zoning, environmental, health, everything that needs to be compliant. And then there's the front facing part of the business,
Hmm.
which is the part that people who come in contact with the business interact with. So that is, it could be a phone call. So, however, you answer your phone, it could be your website, however, your website, the user experience of your website, and it, of course, is your storefront.
Hmm.
When people come in, how did you design the service? And the service is everything. It's looking at the customer's journey and saying, okay, when that person comes through the door, what's going to happen? What are they going to see? How am I going to greet them? What's going to be the tone of my voice? What am I going to be wearing? And it seems like you worry about too many things, but it's real. People notice, and little details are compounding and creating this experience that people have when they come to
Hmm.
the shops.
Hmm.
So it's looking at the public facing, at the front facing part of the business, and the storefront is just a little part of that.
Hmm.
A great storefront with a not so great business, you will know. It's like you're walking around with everything is your clothes are old and they're and you
Hmm.
haven't washed them, but you have a $20,000 Rolex, and it's just there's some kind of dissonance there,
Hmm.
right? So you don't want to have a Rolex if you have other more pressing
Yeah.
priorities. In this case, maybe they're not the best example, but yeah,
Yeah.
kind of illustrates what I'm thinking is you can have, if your business is not prepared to have a top shelf storefront, that top shelf storefront, when it sits on your business, may even be detrimental to your business.
Yeah. And in this day and age, with so much shopping happening online,
Hmm.
that experience, one of the things we talked about a lot this week is you've really got to create and nurture that experience from the minute people might be showing up to your district, because it's just so easy to shop online for basic goods, and cultivating an experience is probably where retail is going to be successful or not successful.
Yes. Uh, so basically, shopping has been commoditized.
Hmm.
If you think of what a commodity is, it's basically anything that you can buy indistinctly in any place without any further consideration. Let's say grapes. You go to a farmer's market to buy grapes. You go to Whole Foods to buy grapes. You go to Publix to buy grapes. Three different shopping experience, completely different shopping experiences. And you don't mind what grapes you're buying. You just go and I like green grapes. That's it. When you move on to wine, which is a specialization of
Hmm.
grapes, you have to go to specialized store. You go to a good wine store or you go to a bad wine store. You grab whatever wine bottle, or you look for the Cabernet Sauvignon from whatever that you are especially looking for, right? And then, uh, so the grape has commoditized, and the specialization is the bottle of wine. Now, if the bottle of wine commoditizes, so you can buy that bottle of wine anywhere, you can buy in Amazon, you can buy in Total Wine, you
Hmm.
can buy in Publix, then what comes next? It comes the experience. The experience of I will sell you this amazing time that you will have in my winery or in my bar where you will drink this bottle of wine, right? So now you're selling something even more experiential. And then that commoditizes because there's so many bars. There's the experience if you go to bars, and they all are designed pretty much the same. So if you go to many bars, the experience is going to be the same. And now you have an additional specialization, which is the transformation. I will transform your life. How do I transform your life? I have this amazing winery where I will make sure that when you come, you meet the right people, where you can share your ideas with those people, where you can create something with those people, where you can have lasting relationships. And I will basically have changed your life, transformed your life into something better. Because also I don't know, I'm just doing natural wine, and it's an organic thing, and I'm not using any tannins and whatever. And so I am making your life better. I am guiding you towards a better place in life. So those are kind of like the stages. The experience, this is where we are right now. We are moving on from the experience to the transformation. And when um, basically storefronts are the face of that transformation. If you can shop anywhere online, I am giving you something that you cannot shop for online. There's no way that you can buy an experience on Amazon, or even if you go to, I shouldn't say names, but online. But if you go to a big box shop, you also cannot buy an experience. It's going to be bright lights and chaos and disorganization. But if you go to a place that is specifically curated and designed to do that, you're basically going to have a great experience, which you cannot purchase online.
Yeah. It's fun. It just kind of reminds me of conversations we used to have about 20 years ago. I got a lot of criticism for saying things like that the internet was going to put a lot of big box retail out of business.
Yeah.
And people were just, oh, what are you talking about? People, nobody's going to shop on the internet, or why would they do that? Or these stores are the lifeblood of retail. And my feeling was always that, the typical box stores that we buy a lot of stuff at, everything from, your Walmarts and Targets of the world to, appliance stores and electronics. There's nothing really good about the experience of going to those stores.
Nope.
Starting from the moment you leave your house, sitting in traffic, fighting parking lots.
Yes.
The stores themselves are just warehouses. For the most part, they don't have much in the way of design that makes you want to hang around. They're designed for you to go there and load up your car and leave. And so there's nothing about an experience that is worthwhile. So if the internet, my feeling was always if the internet could commoditize that, as I figured it probably would eventually, then a lot of those stores would be in real trouble. And it feels like we probably, when COVID hit especially, it really tipped the scales for just like you're saying, anything that couldn't be commoditized easily like that and is not part of an experience that you're seeking out, forget it. You're just going to get it online.
Yeah. And even among them, it's very interesting because Kmart disappeared, whereas Walmart did not.
Right.
Circuit City disappeared, whereas Best Buy did not.
Right.
So they were able to pivot. They were able to invest and change things, and they have big online stores.
Right.
I shop at Walmart.com. I shop at Target.com.
And those stores are so different today than they were 10 years ago. You go, they have much fewer products in the store.
Yeah.
Or, much less of whatever it is that you're looking for. They are driving a lot of business to their online stores.
Yes.
They're pushing a lot of like returns and, exchanges and everything else through online. So even that experience has really changed pretty radically.
And the stores become, in Target, it's a very interesting case. The stores become hosts of other stores.
Yeah.
So you go to Target and you're going to have a Starbucks and you're going to have a CVS.
Right.
And so it's a different kind of shopping experience.
Right.
It's not a great experience, but it's a different kind of shopping experience where you start having a lot of things in the same place. And that's also a business model.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's fascinating how that retail landscape has changed and is changing. And it will always continue to, even, 20 years ago was different than 40 years ago, was different than 60 years ago. It's always evolving and changing. So how do you try to help people. Maybe you could give an example or something of some of the advice that you gave us this week about trying
Mhm.
to curate an experience that makes people want to actually get out of their house and come shop in person.
So basically, what I see is there's two levels of experience that we provide in places. Number one is the experience that the place itself provides.
Hmm.
So you go there and there are amazing benches and there's a stage for live music and there's buskers doing theater or playing jazz or whatever. And it feels like a cohesive place with good design, with good signage, good branding, good wayfinding, etc. And then there's the contribution that the businesses individually do,
Hmm.
right? Basically, our commercial districts are defined by the businesses that we have there. Because if we do everything exactly the same for a place that doesn't have any businesses and for a place that does have businesses, people will come for the businesses. This is
Hmm.
where people will gather. This is where people will congregate. So it is it is on them to create great places.
Hmm.
And it is very unlikely that they will all create a great place. There's only going to be a handful of businesses that are going to be creating these great places. So this is something that actually my agency has pivoted a little bit in the last maybe the last year. The idea is that the contributions of certain specific businesses in downtowns are going to be disproportionately larger than the contributions of others who
Hmm.
maybe just exist or maybe even are struggling.
Hmm.
And it's like when you create a public good and there's no way of controlling who benefits from that, right? So you have street lighting. There's no way of controlling who benefits and who doesn't benefit
Hmm.
from street lighting. Foot traffic is pretty much the same. If you have a business that is the one attractor in your downtown that brings thousands and thousands of people, that foot traffic is going to benefit everyone around them.
Hmm.
And so there's an incredible opportunity to create partnerships, for example, where the thriving businesses can be the mentors of the struggling businesses. There's incredible opportunities to create incubation, where you bring startups and entrepreneurs and essentially help them become full-fledged businesses. And these are not tech startups; these are
Hmm.
downtown startups, which is
Right.
kind of like a different thing. Um, and then there's always the design part.
Hmm.
So, what can we design? How can we create places? How can we make places? And then the whole placemaking part
Yeah.
comes, right? Placemaking is going to be a huge part of the local experience. But essentially, what the local experience is a stimulation of all the senses, where people feel immersed, where people feel like they're part of a story, where they feel like they are part of an executive production of a movie, of a theater play, that they are inside, they are within, and they are helping create and helping perform. This is when people feel like it was an unforgettable experience or an unforgettable time that they had in that specific downtown. So my recommendations are both at the organization level. These are the tactical, these are the strategic things that you can do to create a great experience in your downtown. And also for the businesses, sometimes I do work individually also with the businesses. And so when we develop that storyline, when we develop that message that the entire downtown is going to be sending, then we work with the individual businesses so that they connect effectively and they are in sync essentially with the main message. So whatever they do contributes, compounds, and it's very powerful when it compounds.
Yeah, and there's a lot we talked about this week that I think plays into that. That kind of just trying to get people on the same page with often some really simple ideas
Hmm.
and things we looked at, like bringing your business outdoors and creating lighting that still exists after you close your business.
Hmm.
Fairly simple things that most any business can do. It strikes me that it used to be those big attractors that brought thousands of people. We would have called them department stores not long ago. Those were the anchors
Yep.
for downtowns and then for shopping malls. And the department stores got preferential treatment always. At malls, they often are the only ones that own the real estate, uh, and um, and or get very deeply discounted rent, because they are the ones that bring everybody in.
Hmm.
But the department store age seems to have uh, be either it's either gone or it's going, uh, and um, and what I'm curious what you see as now when you go around to places that are successful. What are examples you're seeing of businesses that are like the new anchors or the ones that are really attracting a lot of people?
I think it's all about experiential businesses. So if you have a new restaurant, that's cool.
Mhm.
If you have a new restaurant that has diners in the dark and they don't know what they're eating and they have to wear dark goggles, and or they go into a basement that takes them through a like escape room where they then proceed to the dining room, and it is not just serving food, it's
Yeah,
serving something completely different than food. uh, Escape rooms, for
yeah,
example, or I mean whatever experiential business,
yeah,
pottery, uh, inside golf, whatever that
yeah,
really brings people to have a good time and not to shop. I think
yeah,
that's probably the main thing when people go to have a good time instead of shopping.
yeah,
Shopping probably is dead because uh, you can do it online.
yeah,
So let's say retail is not dead. Only boring retail is dead.
yeah, yeah. And I think one of the things you talked about this week is a lot of those retailers to survive are changing their
Yeah.
model, and in some cases to be almost more like showrooms
Yes.
than having a whole lot of stock on hand.
On one hand, yes, showrooms. So you don't need stock. And what you provide is you provide a little bit a taste of that lifestyle that you are selling.
Hmm.
um, I don't know, Williams Sonoma or Crate and Barrel. They are not selling furniture. They are not selling pots and pans.
Hmm.
They are selling a lifestyle. So when you come to their store, you do not come to see their stock.
Hmm.
You come to have a little taste of their lifestyle. So I think that's very, very important. That they are selling you a lifestyle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it kind of makes me wonder. One of the things, sometimes I feel like everything comes around in a circle. Like things that are happening now are just modern versions of what we had 100 years ago. But
Yeah.
like one of the things 100 years ago is you had businesses that sold new cars.
Hmm.
They had small or modest sized showrooms in cities, and so you could actually it was like you walk by and there's a storefront
Hmm.
and they're selling
Yep.
Fords or Buicks or whatever, and they have two or three of the cars that are in there that anybody can look at and touch and whatever else.
Absolutely.
And then that evolved and changed, and so they have all moved to huge car lots where they have every model and
Hmm.
color on hand, in case you want to buy it. But now, now with the sort of mass customization process,
Yes.
you can probably just know what you want and have that car ordered, and in 4 to 6 weeks it might come to you. And so it's like, I wonder if we could see car showrooms again like
Well,
that
they're
in
coming back.
downtowns.
They're coming back. At first, you see them in malls,
Hmm.
and so now you can go and you can customize your car. You cannot buy it there;
Yeah,
it'll come to your house, self-driving, and you can buy it there
yeah.
at the mall. But there's something even one step further. Um, I have the blessing or the curse, however you want to see it, of living very close to New York City,
Hmm.
and for my birthday, my wife and my kid took me to the Genesis house. This is a luxury brand from Hyundai,
Hmm.
Korean cars, that have done their Lexus to Toyota.
Wow,
It's called Genesis.
interesting.
Very interesting. And they created this Genesis house in Manhattan. And basically, it's a place where you have the showroom with the cars, and people, very, very helpful people, come and tell you everything you need to know about the car.
Hmm.
You cannot drive it because it's not a proper car dealership. but you can get into the car and you can play the music and you can move the seats and you can have the entire car experience. But it's a Korean car brand. It has a Korean restaurant that was created by one of the Michelin star Korean chefs who
Huh.
came from Seoul and created the menu of this restaurant. It's a delicious tasting menu
Huh.
that they change every season and whatever. They have a tea room for tea ceremonies, and it's like a Korean cultural thing.
Hmm.
They have a small bookstore. It's a top shelf art book store. Amazing, and everything is themed Korean, of course.
Hmm.
And so they are not just showing you the cars; they're showing you the lifestyle, and they're even selling you the lifestyle that the car represents. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think they're coming back with a bang.
I mean, that's amazing. That sounds exactly like the kind of place that would be a draw, like an enormous draw that
Oh yeah,
people would come from around to just experience that. And it's got such a variety of things going on, and it's
hmm
unique. That's really cool. Um, and it's like sitting here, it makes me think about other really interesting experiential businesses that are out there. I remember one, I don't know why this comes to mind right now. It's just random stuff that pop into your brain, but
hmm
there's a bookstore in Asheville, North Carolina. That's fairly famous, and great bookstore. But the thing I remember about it is that it basically has a bar in the middle of it.
awesome.
So, you come in, you get your glass of wine, your beer, your cocktail, whatever, and then you can pull books off the shelf and sit and look at them and
Love
read it.
it.
And it's freaking amazing. And the
Yeah.
place is busy all the time. But they knew how to curate like a certain experience for
Yes.
people.
Was probably experiential before it was cool.
Probably.
Yeah.
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 It's
That's,
Asheville.
that's
So yeah.
Asheville.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
no doubt. No doubt.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's history doesn't repeat, it rhymes.
Hmm.
And so it's coming back, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did you first become acquainted with the new urbanism?
New Urbanism College.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, architecture school more than college.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in Savannah, all the way back then.
In Savannah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Way back.
A good place to experience it too.
Very good place to
Yeah.
experience. I had the fortune of being classmates with one of the uh, very famous new urbanists who is now featured in the new Art of the New Urbanism uh, book, which is a fantastic book.
Which one?
If you haven't purchase it.
Yeah.
Yeah, plug.
Apparently I'm in that book too, and I haven't.
You're in that book too?
Yeah.
It's
Victor tagged me on something and I have no idea. I haven't even
It's
looked at it yet.
absolutely fantastic.
Good.
So anyway, my friend Eduardo Castillo.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Eduardo. Yeah, sure.
So he actually worked for Victor.
Yeah.
And he was the gateway to the new urbanism. He was always bringing the books and whatever, and like, this is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And so I started then, and then I moved back to Ecuador after architecture school was over, and I was teaching urban studios and urban theory in the university there. And I was teaching the charter, and I was teaching, principles of new urbanism and all these things. It was completely alien to everyone there. Like, what are you talking about? Most were not very happy with me saying that modernism is not,
not what it's
God's
cracked up
gift
to be.
humanity. Yeah. So because typically Latin American architects we are trained in, well, I was trained here, but in Latin America, architects are trained in modernism, and there's a lot of architecture schools that were founded or were fronted by people who actually worked in the ateliers of Le Corbusier in the 50s and 60s. So it's a hard religion to go into, but I did. I was teaching that, and then I just kept in contact with. I never actually worked in urban projects that would be even labeled as new urbanism. I was working architecture, and then I just moved on to economic development. So yeah.
How did having that knowledge about the new urbanism and then moving back to Quito, how did that change your perception of your own city, or did you see your city differently after you'd had a little bit of that kind of urban design education?
Of course, and then you start to search for the uh, sections of the city that have that flavor and understand why they have that flavor.
Hmm.
So there's very little infill that is done in Quito, especially. If there's going to be any project that even closely resembles new urbanism, it's going to be outside. We have actually a very interesting new urbanism development in Guayaquil. It's a beautiful place, but it's of course made in it was a greenfield. It was
Hmm.
not there was nothing there before.
Right.
There's very little infill in the city, so you don't get to, but you still get to understand the scale. You get to understand the reason why people use the city in the way that they do. You
Hmm.
understand why a place is walkable, what the place is missing, and it is very useful even if you're not doing design work. If you're doing economic development work, it's incredibly useful to understand scale. Above all, understanding scale. I think that's probably the main thing that I can translate from the design world of the new urbanism to the economic development world that I am
Yeah.
that I work on now,
Yeah.
is probably scale, understanding of scale and proportion.
Yeah. And just, how humans relate to space
Exactly.
of all
Exactly.
kinds, whether you're indoors, outdoors,
Correct. It's scale and proportion.
or
Yeah.
whatever. It's interesting that even though you say that about how a lot of Latin American architects are trained as modernists, at the same time, there are some of the more remarkable new urbanist projects are in Latin America.
Yes.
In recent years, even in just fairly recent years, Las Catalinas, which I've talked about
Hmm.
before in Costa Rica, Leon Creer, may he rest in peace,
May he rest in peace.
his development in Guatemala.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, well, I don't know why I'm
Kayala.
Cayala. Yeah, which I don't know why I was blanking on the name of that. Um, and I mean, what else? What else would you say is worthy of people knowing about in Central or Southern America in terms of newer developments?
I think is, of course, I left many years ago,
Yeah,
and yeah, I actually have only been back once.
really, all
Yes,
this time.
all
Wow,
this time only have been for a
wow,
couple of weeks, and that's it. I haven't
wow.
been back. Um, so I think the most important part is that right now new urbanism is a little bit more mainstream. Is a lot more mainstream,
Right.
and there's a few schools that have produced great architects and urban designers
Hmm.
who went back to their countries. And so this is where you have things like Kayala,
Hmm.
right? It's local design. Yes, Leon Krier was the mastermind,
Right.
but it's local people who
Right.
actually did it.
And it's remarkable. I
It
mean,
is. So it's local people who actually did it, and this is spreading
hmm,
because people see the benefits, because people understand how it works, and yeah, I think it's spreading, and that gives me a lot of hope.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting. How do you feel like new urbanism has changed in the years that you have known about it, been involved with it? It's been a couple of decades now since you've
It
been
has.
involved.
It has. Um, how it has changed,
Good and the bad.
good and bad.
I
Um,
know I'm going to put you on the spot. So,
yeah, it's fine. I mean, I think I think understanding how things do get built. There was a movement. I don't think it lasted that long, or maybe it's still there, and I don't know. Which was the those lean developments and the pin
yeah,
code and all these things.
yeah.
I don't think I've heard more of that. That
No,
would
it
be
was, I was really involved in that for a while too. And I did one of the lean urbanism pilot projects when I was in Savannah. And Andreas was hot to trot on lean urbanism for a while.
mhm,
And, um, they got funding from a foundation and they did a bunch of really cool work, but so much of that grew out of the recession. It was sort of a
yes,
response, like a
yes,
desperation response. We've got to figure out how to keep going and doing things. And the truth is, there was actually some just brilliant work that came out of the lean
hmm
urbanism efforts. But I also think you're right that I think it seems to have faded from view and not gotten the attention that I wish it had, that it would
yeah,
continue to get, because there's some truly brilliant thinking about the nature of how places get made, bit
absolutely.
by bit, incrementally.
Uh-huh. And so I do think that as a movement growing so much as it has, It's easier to see the more broad lines, and seeing the very fine lines, it gets a little bit more difficult.
Hmm.
And what do I mean by that? I mean precisely the ideas around the lean urbanism,
Hmm.
around what really is ailing our cities, what is making our cities sick, what is preventing our cities from developing properly. And what I see happens is that we are uh, um, changing one model of regulation with a different model of
Yeah.
regulation,
Yeah.
but we're doing it from the top down. We're
Hmm.
saying these are the good rules for making cities.
Hmm.
I'm sure Le Corbusier also thought his rules were good.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure he did.
Hmm.
Um,
He
so
wrote many books about
wrote many books
it.
about it, and yeah, well, that's probably an
Yeah.
extreme case,
Yeah.
because there's a other issues that we
Right.
might talk about Le
Right.
Corbusier as a person, but um, we are saying these are now the good rules for building cities. These are the rules that we should use for building cities,
Yeah.
and I get convinced more and more all the time that we don't build cities with good rules. We build cities with good culture.
Hmm.
There are cultural considerations that get people to build cities in a human scale. Uh, People build cities in a human scale. It's not
Hmm.
that there's an entity, there's
Right.
an organization, there's a movement, there's a government, there's a whatever that tells people you should build in a human scale. No, it's this is natural, ingrained in the culture, and people build like this.
Right.
And this is what I gathered at the beginning that the new urbanism was promoting. This is how we build from the grassroots, from the bottom up,
Yeah.
because new urbanism at the time was a movement that was not at the top.
Right.
Currently, it may be very well at the top.
Or
So
certain of the ideas have certainly
correct,
come
they
to
have
that level.
become completely mainstream.
Yeah.
And so I feel like there's a need of, especially now, I feel like I was not around in 2007, 2008. I was not around to see Lehman Brothers fall
Hmm.
and all the aftermath, which was brutal.
Mm.
But
I was there.
you were there. It
Yeah.
was brutal, because
Yeah. It was
I
terrible.
saw my classmates, I
Hmm.
saw the industry, I saw it. It was absolutely brutal.
Hmm.
I feel like right now we are in a kind of similar path, let's say, and there will come, sooner rather than later, I think there will come a time of a break so large that we might have to reassess our entire relation to how we build cities, to how we regulate cities.
Hmm.
Right now, if you want to get a permit, it's brutal,
Hmm.
but getting the permit is not the problem. Doing the stuff that the permit allows you to do may not be conducive to creating a great city,
Yeah.
because you have to, there's costs that have compounded terribly, because regulations have compounded terribly. And there's no way, for example, if I am in Ecuador, told you I haven't been for many many years, maybe a little bit different right now, but when I was building there, I could call my window guy and my carpenter, and they would both talk, and they would both produce beautiful handmade wooden windows for a
Mm.
specific place. And there was no mandate for specific windows that I needed. There was no shape or size mandates, not mandates, but
Hmm.
industry standards that I
Right.
had to comply with, because otherwise it would be absurdly expensive. So I could basically build for cheap. I could bring, I don't know, a stone or a brick mason, and they could build something. And it was very, very cheap. It gets a little bit more expensive when it gets more complex, when I have to
Right.
bring sprinklers, when I want to heat the floor, then it gets very expensive. But here, it seems like there's so many regulations that make everything so expensive. There will come a time when the only way that we can build is if we ditch all those things that make regulations expensive. And I sadly
Mm.
speak a little bit of from experience, because we have had those crashes in Ecuador that make the crash of 2008 absolutely child's play, and
Mm,
it was absolutely brutal on the entire country. Bank accounts were frozen.
mm,
People literally couldn't access funds that were for operations and medical treatments and stuff. It was people literally died because they did not have access to their own money,
mm.
and the salaries that you were making, suddenly you were making basically a fifth of that because they had to lose the currency and change the currency into the US dollar.
Mhm.
It was a brutal time, and so we had to reassess how we did things, because if you were a plumber who were charging, I don't know, 5,000 sucres for some work, now you are the same plumber charging in dollars, and you would charge $50. My friend, that is 10 times what you were charging before. I cannot pay you 10 times than I was paying you before, 10
Mhm.
times more. So those inconsistencies had to be, we had to get them in check pretty fast, because otherwise everything crumbles.
Yeah.
So the economy was in shambles, but then if the relationships between the economy are crumbling, then you cannot rebuild. So there may come a time sooner rather than later here that we might have to reassess. So my suggestion would be, let's try to reassess it before,
Yeah.
when we have time, as little as we do, so that we don't have to do it with the snowball being too big and
Yeah.
falling on top of us.
I mean, it certainly does feel like there's a fiscal situation we have that's unsustainable.
Yes.
And who knows what unsustainable means? It might mean there's a problem 6 months from now, 6 years from now, 20 years from now. Who knows? But there's a path that we're on that feels
Yes.
very perilous, especially in relation to debt
Yeah.
and the value of the dollar and
It's
everything else.
boiling the frog. When you
Right.
boil the frog, it just doesn't jump because you're increasing temperature very, very
Right.
slightly. The the US dollar has lost like 25% of its
Hmm.
value since COVID.
Hmm.
It has lost almost 99% of its value since the Federal Reserve was created,
Hmm.
which was 110 years ago,
Right.
112 years ago. So we are on a path when we're working, and we're trying to get money to do
Hmm.
things, but then the money is losing value. The If you look at minimum wages in 1971, when they ditched the gold standard, um, a minimum wage would buy you a certain amount of silver. How much things have become more expensive is basically the gap that we have between salaries and buying the same amount of silver right now.
Hmm.
So it has grown 20 times in value, the silver, in dollar value, the silver,
Hmm.
but your wages have grown 4 times.
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous what you could do before, how much you could purchase before with a minimum wage salary. You could purchase a house, you could purchase a car, you could basically, and one person working in the household. Right
Right.
now, two people working in the household, and it's impossible,
Yeah.
because the US dollar has lost value.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know from other discussions and podcasts that you're really interested in Bitcoin. And I heard you on Austin Tennell's podcast,
Yes.
Building Culture. It was a really great discussion with a whole group of people. Do you think was it like because of your experience in Ecuador that got you interested in these issues about currency
Mhm.
and alternative currencies and stuff like that?
We had to learn because we needed to survive. So we
Right.
had to learn how this works. Our economy was completely dollarized even before they made the dollar the official currency of Ecuador.
Hmm.
So everything was happening in dollars because there was no way that we could trust the local currency. That was the official. You
Right.
had to pay taxes in that currency. You had to purchase things in that currency. But all your life was already all your accounting was already done in US dollars. As soon as they
Hmm.
paid you, you had to run. There was a specific street, black market. You had to run to purchase dollars in that street. And
Jeez.
if someone outran you, the selling guy would not have enough dollars. So you could only buy with half of your salary. So the next day, the half that you weren't able to buy dollars was pretty much worthless
Oh my God.
because inflation was so rampant. It was a very scary situation. So pretty much everyone was existing in dollars, trying to get paid in dollars. If you had, for example, property to rent, you would let that property, but the
Hmm.
contract would be in dollars, the equivalent of sucres, but in dollars, so that you wouldn't be basically losing money from one
Right.
month to the other. So yes, that gets you interested in the alternatives.
Hmm.
And currently we have two alternatives, because in every country in the world, the US dollar is the alternative.
Yeah.
We have the US dollar and we see that it's losing value so fast. So we have two alternatives. One is gold or metals,
Hmm.
and the other one is Bitcoin.
Hmm.
We can argue that real estate is also, yes, a store of value.
Sure.
However, I feel like it's very dangerous to see real estate as a store of value, because real estate in the end is not a financial instrument. It's a brick and mortar place where you
Right.
live or where you shop, where you have a roof over your head. So we have made that a financial instrument. I think that's very, very scary, and I think it's a big mistake. I
Hmm.
think there might come a time when, if your net worth is too much leaning into your property, your real property, we may get some not so great surprises.
Yeah.
So I tend to not want to put real estate in that category. So I say metals, gold being the best one, the one that has kept its value the most, and there's Bitcoin, which is basically digital gold.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think we had shared on Twitter this chart that I saw not recently that was tracking the price of US homes or homes in the United States
Yes,
if they were priced in Bitcoin
yes.
over the last like 5 years or so. And I think it was basically like somewhere between 0 and 2% of price increase.
you can you can track it for 12 years, basically 13 years.
Yeah.
Um, at the beginning, with Bitcoin is worth $1.
Hmm.
Then a house, the median house, is worth 400,000 Bitcoin.
Hmm.
And then as we move on, and Bitcoin right now is $106,000.
He checked on
Yeah,
his watch, ladies and gentlemen.
yes. Bitcoin is $106,000. Um, the price of a house is 2.5 Bitcoin.
Hmm.
So if you were
Hmm.
a pioneer and bought Bitcoin at $1, $10, $100 right now, you've made basically 10,000%.
Hmm.
And you're technically able to, if you bought $1,000 of Bitcoin in when Bitcoin was $10,
Hmm.
then you have 100 Bitcoin. Then you have basically $10 million in it. My math is horrible, so it may not be $10 million, but it's a lot of money. You can
Hmm.
buy a house. You can easily buy a house with $1,000 purchased in Bitcoin 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So that for me is crazy. I I think I understand money enough to be able to say that it is not speculation. That the number of times that people have declared Bitcoin dead is a meme in the Bitcoin community.
Hmm.
They have these cards of the people who declared Bitcoin dead with how much Bitcoin was worth when they did it
Hmm.
and how much it is now. And it's a very interesting set of memes.
Hmm.
And so I think it's wise. I never give financial advice because I am not a finance person. So I never give financial advice. The only advice that I can give people is study, to study and to get to know the nature of money, get to know what money is and how money right now is not working for us.
Right.
And so try to find the alternatives that will help you, you know, make some good decisions in the future. So
Yeah.
I currently do not advocate for Bitcoin. I advocate for studying alternatives.
Right.
Study gold. Do study Bitcoin, yes, but study gold, study Bitcoin, understand why they are alternatives.
And to me, it's worth understanding the historical context. So,
Mhm.
for the same reason, I think it's useful to just as a supposition to look around the built environment. So, I'll just speak specifically about American cities, which
Mhm.
I'm most knowledgeable about. and certainly my city, which I'm more knowledgeable about than any other, the era in which we built the best buildings and the best neighborhoods
Hmm.
uh, was an era that was roughly speaking from here about 1870 to 1920 or so.
Hmm.
Um, and we built remarkable neighborhoods that have stood the test of time, that are still
Yes.
incredibly desirable,
Hmm.
that are beautiful, that are walkable, that are diverse, and there's tremendous value in there. So I look at it. There's a standpoint of like, okay, what was the context? What was happening in terms of planning and design regulations in that era? And I want to understand, what it took to build something in that era, because I think it's useful to understand what was the system in place that produced such a
Hmm.
great result. And not to say that we would do everything exactly like then, because we wouldn't, but I think it's useful in understanding that. And I think for the same reason, it's useful in understanding what was the financial system like that
Yes.
produced that result, because building things is all downstream of finance and money.
Hmm.
And if we don't have some understanding of money and finance, we won't ever be able to successfully, have good places built.
Absolutely. I think they're both functions of culture. So there's culture,
Yeah,
there's
for
values,
sure.
there's
Yeah.
purpose. And so we build our cities, our culture, our values,
Yeah.
our purpose builds our cities. Our culture, our values, our purpose builds our financial system.
Right.
So it's not it's not a matter of saying, "Oh, life was great in the 1870s, so let's
Right.
go back to the
Right.
1870s."
Right.
No, we've come a long way. This
Mm-hmm.
is the best time to be alive
Mm-hmm.
in history.
Yeah.
Every week we see incredible leaps in technology, and focusing even on medical technology, you see tremendous leaps every single week of people who are discussing cures for diabetes type 1, for certain types of cancers, and we are moving along in a very, very fast way from the poor conditions that the 1870s
Right.
represented, with skyrocketing everything bad
Mm-hmm.
indicators. So it's not a matter of going back. It's a matter of understanding what was the culture, what was the purpose, what was the grit that took a man like Frank Lloyd Wright to design the buildings that he did, took a man like Louis Sullivan to design the buildings that he did. What were they responding to? I
Right.
have when I was a college professor, I used to have this assignment that I sent every week to the students that they had to come every Monday with. It was looking at whatever new project of architecture anywhere in the world. And I did not want to know anything about the architecture because I could see it. They could bring a picture, I could see it. I wanted to know what what are the economic conditions of that particular place. What is the school of thought of the architect who built that? What is the culture of the place? What is the economy of the place? What are the conditions of the context that allow that particular piece of architecture to be built? And it was I was the most hated professor probably in the entire university, because it's very hard. It's
Mm-hmm.
very hard, and people do not see the connection between the
Right.
context. And so we are complaining right now that construction is cheap. We are complaining that construction is very poorly um, executed. We are complaining that everything is so expensive. And we're not seeing all the different contexts that locate that expensive wood, that locate that cheap manufacturing, that locate everything in
Yeah.
context, right? We need to do that. We need to understand that. And we need to understand that pretty much probably 80%, let's say the Pareto principle, 80-20, 80% of everything we do is responding to regulations that are not allowing us to do things naturally.
Yeah. 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 I think that's well said. And there's also the famous saying that politics is downstream of culture. And
Everything is downstream of culture.
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
you build the political system
Based on the
that you
culture.
have based on the
Right.
culture.
Right.
The system that we have right now
Mm-hmm.
was built on geniuses,
Mm-hmm.
absolute geniuses. When I was in Ecuador, I was studying what the American founding fathers had done because
Mm-hmm.
it's absolutely genius.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to, not we, I say we now, of course. Americans were able to build the extraordinary wealth that this country has
Mm-hmm.
because there was a purpose,
Right.
because there was a culture behind it, a culture of pride, a culture of grit, a culture of agency, a culture of will above everything.
Mm-hmm.
The conditions that those pioneers had when they were moving west
Right.
were probably the worst conditions in the history of mankind, and
Mm-hmm.
they prevailed. They overcame those conditions with with great sacrifice, with brutal trials,
Mm-hmm.
and they did, and they built San Francisco and Seattle,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just it's downstream from culture,
Right.
values, and purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Very well said. Um, all right. I'm afraid we could go on for a long time. But I also know I need to get you some dinner here. We need to make sure you get fed before you have to take off for your early flight tomorrow. Jaime, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, get to see what you're doing, et cetera? What do you recommend?
I think the best way is to either email me or go to my website. It's storefrontmastery.com,
Mm-hmm.
and my email is hello@storefrontmastery.com. That's the easiest way to get in touch with me. I used to be in LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
I keep it open. I visit probably once a
Mm-hmm.
month.
Yeah.
I was not getting much from it, so I'm not there much. So that's email is the best. I would love to have dialogue with whoever wants to write and talk about these fascinating topics. So that's probably the best.
Well, I think one of the things that I have enjoyed more than anything about the kind of unique cats that have that were part of the new urbanism
Hmm.
is this great mix of people who are exceptionally practical about getting things done, like you are, but also think about the big issues and like to talk about them. And you just don't find that very much. And I found that very commonly in a lot of CNU people or
Yep.
regular attendees, and I'm you're certainly one of those, and it's been a lot of fun having you here this week.
Thank
So,
you. I'm very grateful and honored and humbled to be able to contribute to this conversation. And thank you for this. Thank you for hosting me in this
mhm.
wonderful city. I have seen an tiny little fraction of the city.
Yeah.
But I'm sure I will be back, and
We'll make sure you see more next time. So,
great. It's been awesome. Thank you.
all right. Thanks, Jaime, very much. And thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you later.